Hey there guys, this is Sam
and Justin
at the Survival Review, and today we are going to be talking about what a lot of people consider to be one of the scariest, if not the scariest horror movie of all time, The Exorcist.
Yeah, one of the most iconic horror films ever made, and for good reason.
Yeah, it's scary.
Yeah, it's one of the best. This is the kind of movie that just has an eerie vibe throughout the entire movie. It might just be due to its status as like the scariest horror movie of all time. Like when we were kids, I always kept hearing about like how scary that movie is.
Yeah.
So that might have came off on screen, but every time I watch the movie, it still has that creepy, unsettling vibe to it that like no other horror movie has.
It really does. You feel it the whole time, and even after the movie is over,
Yeah.
it lingers. You feel that sort of uneasiness that you feel throughout the entire movie.
Yeah.
And it sticks. It's a really discomforting, freaky movie.
So the plot of this movie, for those of you who don't know, the plot of The Exorcist.
Yeah, it's pretty much like the gold standard for what a lot of exorcism movies have come to do since.
Yeah.
But it follows this mother and her daughter who she's this actress, and the dad's not really in the picture.
They live in this corner house while the mom is making this movie. And then weird stuff starts happening with her daughter.
She seems to be kind of depressed and just acting a bit weird.
And these little freakouts where she just like swears incredibly at the doctor and stuff like that.
But then things start getting weirder when the bed starts shaking, and even one of the big parts of the movie where there's this party going on. And, you know, she seems perfectly normal during the party, but then when they send her up to bed, a little bit later she comes down in her nightgown, she pees herself, she starts, you know...
Yeah, and slowly it gets to the point where the doctors don't really know what to do. Like, they keep sending in psychiatrists, they keep doing these tests on her, to the point where they actually consider...
You ever heard of exorcism?
They're not like, oh God, it's a demon, you have to get it out, but they're just like, maybe the idea of an exorcism would calm her down, like... Yeah. The attempt of it might make things better.
They mention how, like, in the past it has been known to help with some situations like this when a person maybe believes they're possessed by a demon.
Yeah, and then we enter Father Karras, who is the main priest in the movie. He's just this regular old priest, but his mom, who's been living all by herself in this little apartment,
she gets, like, ill and gets sent to this hospital. Yeah. In the hospital, she's stuck there in this part with a bunch of mental patients.
Yeah. So that really affects him. He does not like that. He wishes he could afford to take her home and have her live with him. And then while she's at that hospital, she ends up dying.
Yeah. And that just adds to his grief, and, like, he has so much burden on him.
And he even starts questioning his faith.
Exactly. So his character just goes through so much in this movie.
Yeah, and he is the main priest who works with Reagan, the daughter, in trying to get this demon out of her. Yeah. What works about this movie is that it just feels like a high-quality film. It doesn't feel like your typical type of horror movie. Yeah. You have great actors in it. Everybody giving, like, amazing performances that goes above, like, a horror movie performance into, like, a legitimate great performance to the point where these actors actually got nominated for Oscars.
Yeah, Reagan herself was nominated for Best Supporting Actress.
Yeah, Linda Blair.
Incredible for a girl her age, especially. She was like 10 at the time, so.
Yeah, and she's great in the part.
Yeah, she's really good.
You also have classic actor Max von Sydow playing Father Merrin, who comes into play in the third act of the movie during the big exorcism scene, and he's great as usual. He's just a classic great actor, so he's good. But to me, the actor who stands out the most and is actually the best part of the movie is Jason Miller as Father Karras.
And he is, like I said, he has so much that he has to live with in this movie, or I don't know, you feel bad for him.
Yeah. And watching this movie really sucks that Jason Miller never really went on to have a big career in film. Because I think he's a legitimate great actor. And I don't know what it is, but whenever he's on screen, I'm like the most engaged. So I feel like he's the best aspect of this movie. I thought his acting was phenomenal in the film. Yeah. And he's the standout character of this film. Yeah, Reagan is also a standout because it's Reagan, it's the girl who got possessed. But I feel like Karras is the most compelling character, is the most developed character, the most complex character, and the best acted in the film.
Without a doubt.
You're not my mother!
Don't listen.
Why, Jimmy?
Damien.
One of the things about this movie is the gritty and kind of realistic feel of the film. Like, I like the portrayal of priests in this movie, because they feel like regular guys. Yeah. Like, they drink and smoke. I mean, they don't feel like your typical, like, movie priest. It's just like, oh, you know, just praying the entire time and all that kind of stuff. There's a scene where Karras is grief-stricken about his mom, and he's just lying in bed, just kind of drunk, and this other priest who you see over in the movie, Father Dyer, is there, and he's just sitting there just drinking with him and all that kind of stuff, and like I just feel like that adds a sense of realism to the movie that other movies don't really have. This movie is directed by William Friedkin, who did The French Connection, which is like a crime thriller. So it's really weird that he would go on to do a horror film, and this movie kind of has that vibe that French Connection has of just like this gritty, realistic, down-to-earth story. And I think this is what makes it scary when all the weird, over-the-top stuff starts happening, because it happens in this real environment that you buy. Mm-hmm. And the makeup in this movie.
The makeup is another just standout piece.
Now, when we say that, what comes to everybody's mind is Reagan.
Yeah.
And her slow, just kind of like descent into becoming more and more scarred and stuff like that. And that's great, too. But to me, what stands out the most in this, makeup-wise, is the makeup on Father Merrin. Mm-hmm. Because I legitimately thought Max von Sydow was an old actor.
Yeah.
At that time. He was only 40 years old.
Yeah, he was not old at all.
And I remember being so confused because I saw him in like a modern movie. And he looked the exact same age he looked in The Exorcist. I'm like, how did this guy not age?
Yep.
Then I read up on it and realized that he was in old age makeup. Mm-hmm. It's probably the best old age makeup in a movie.
Because I never would have known had I not been told about that.
Yeah.
It was really, really impressive. And, I mean, that aside, Reagan's makeup is also just one of the standout portions of the movie.
Mm-hmm. I like the earlier stages of it as it like gradually starts to get worse and worse.
Yeah.
That to me is where it stands out the most.
And parts where, like, when the words "help me" are on her,
yeah.
it's really, really well done.
Yeah, the scene in the movie that stuck out to me, actually, is a much more subtle scene. But I think just because of the first time I saw the movie, was watching it in my family room all by myself in my house. That's right at the scene where Father Karras is spraying the holy water on Reagan. She starts speaking this weird language and stuff, and he's having this guy look at it, and the guy goes, "Yeah, I know language that is. It's English, backwards." And he plays it backwards, and it's actually English in reverse. Mm-hmm. And it's just all these different voices saying like,
I am no one. I am no one. Fear the priest. Fear the priest.
And hearing that, seeing that scene just sitting in my family room while the air was on, blowing the blinds behind me, was freaking me out, actually. And, like, legitimately was creepy and unsettling.
It's a really, really just uncomfortable movie.
Yeah, and then there's just so many, like, crazy scenes in here. Like, the scene with the cross.
Yep.
And stuff like that. Just a lot of standout scenes. A lot of iconic stuff they could spoof nowadays. Of course, Reagan throwing up.
Yeah.
And the power of Christ compels you and all that stuff. But I feel the movie is able to move past like its iconic status. Like when you get to those scenes, you're like, yeah, that's fun.
Your mother sucks cocks in hell, Karras.
That stuff is, of course, iconic. And when you watch it, you kind of chuckle a little bit because it's so well known. But there's enough past that it's just freaky as hell and just really eerie and unsettling.
Yeah.
What an excellent day for an exorcism.
This movie was actually nominated for Best Picture.
Yeah, which deservedly so.
Yeah.
I think it definitely deserves that.
Yeah.
But that just goes as a testament to this movie takes it a step up from your standard horror film to just a really, really fantastic film in general.
Exactly. There's a lot more going on. There's a lot more themes going on with like losing your faith and all that kind of stuff. There's a lot more to it than just your typical oh, she's possessed, we have to perform an exorcism. You know, there's a lot more to it than that, which I think is also what helps make it stand the test of time. Yeah. Like I heard some people talk about how they saw it in theaters just recently and everybody was like laughing at it, which kind of surprised me.
Yeah,
aside from some moments, of course.
There are some.
Yeah,
I could see
there's
that.
some moments that might not hold up over time, but for the most part, again, this movie just is freaky.
Yeah, it's not one of these cheesy old horror movies that hasn't stood up. It really stands the test of time.
Yeah, it just sticks with you from the amazing performances to the set pieces, to the big exorcism scene at the end, which is great and just intense at times, to the ending, which is also very memorable. It works. So out of 10.
Out of 10, I have to give this movie a 9 out of 10. I don't think it's a perfect movie, but it's close to it. It's really, really, really one of the best horror films ever made.
I'm going 10 out of 10. Yeah, of course the movie's not perfect, but I think the greatness of the movie overshadows the little flaws that the movie has. It's because this movie is still effective, and it still sticks with me. Like, I thought the first time I saw it that real eerie vibe I got out of it was just because I'm watching the scariest movie of all time, ooh. Yeah. But every time I watch that movie again, I still have that creepy vibe that doesn't go away. So it's not just like me thinking, oh, that's because it's iconic, that's why it has that feel to it. It's because it is a legit creepy and eerie movie. It's definitely up there as one of the most unique and easily one of the best of all time.
Without a doubt. It deserves its title that a lot of people give it as one of the scariest of all time.
So you think The Exorcist is the kind of movie that we would review on Halloween, since it's so iconic, it's such a classic film, the sequels don't matter, it stands on its own. Well, the reason why we're doing it in the middle of the month is because there actually is one sequel to the movie that actually matters and is actually good, and that is The Exorcist 3, which will be the movie we'll be viewing next time.
Yeah, so until then, we'll see you guys later.